Welcome to Machine Builder Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of automation, engineering, and the craft of building machines. Whether you're a seasoned automation pro or just starting your journey, you're in the right place to connect, learn, and get inspired. My name is Colin, and I'm your host, so let's get started. Welcome to Machine Builder Talk. Today's guest is someone who represents the next generation of leadership in the packaging industry. Jacob Wall is the Packaging Engineering Manager at PPC Flexible Packaging and currently serves as the Chairperson of the Emerging Leaders Committee at PMMI. Since meeting Jacob at PMMI committee meetings earlier in the year, I've been consistently impressed not only by his technical depth and prowess, but his customer mindset and the way he's helping shape the future of our industry. Jacob, welcome to Machine Builder Talk.
Hi, Colin. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you on, Jacob. I know we've been trying to get this set up for a while and we've been back and forth. We actually tried to plan this nearly 2 months ago, right? So
You did, yeah.
it's awesome to have you here on a Friday before a long weekend and Memorial Day coming up. By the time this actually airs, you would have already enjoyed Memorial Day. But welcome to the show, Jacob. Now, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do at PPC and what your company are specialized in.
Sure. So I'm the engineering manager at PPC Flexible Packaging. I manage our packaging engineering team and our field service team. So PPC is a flexible packaging converter. So we're taking raw materials, we'll print on it, laminate, slit, and then convert into pre-made.
Right. And so you supply the CPGs, right?
We work with a lot of the CPGs, some retailers, brokers, right? Any of those, anybody who needs packaging, we've got them covered.
Right. And does PPC have a specialty that they do that no one else does?
So a big focus that PPC has is purposeful, powerful packaging, right? A little bit of alliteration there, but we want to ensure that we're creating and designing a package that is not only going to be purposeful, but it's going to have a powerful presence on shelf. That way it really grabs your consumer's attention. So we've got a lot of high print quality assets to really make packaging stand out. But then we're also going to be able to cover you from a single pouch all the way up to 1 million, kind of what we say. So we've got assets in-house that allow us to provide you with a single prototype all the way through high production output volumes.
Right. Okay. So you can do small volumes or large volumes, and it doesn't matter. Your services basically are offered for small mom and pop companies, right up to the massive conglomerates that are making millions of pieces of a product a year or even a month. I mean, food, right? So
yeah, exactly. Right. We're trying to, we have solutions to meet just about anybody's needs.
Right. Okay. And in the product that you provide, okay, do you provide a full service? So do you do design right from the beginning? You work with their design teams? Have you got your design teams? You work with the customer and they visualize what it looks like, and then you put it all into action, show them, concept it up, and show them what it looks like at the end. Choose the material, because that's also a big part of that, right? What material is going to be used, and do the whole shebang for them, or is it a partnership with your customer? Kind of, they do the design and then they hand the designs over to you, and you take care of it from there.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, right? So we work with a wide variety of customers. So it could be where maybe we get something as simple as a napkin sketch and a customer has this idea in mind. We'll partner with them to help develop the package format. We may work with their co-packers as well to understand their equipment and their needs. We could help them design it up front. We're not going to design the art per se and what that print quality is going to look like, but we can recommend somebody. Or we work with other large CPGs that know exactly what they want, and they say, here you go, and we'll get it moving for them. A lot of what my team focuses on is really that development of the product itself. So we're going to determine the film grades that are needed, the dimensions based on whatever features or attributes they want or limitations that we have on shelf. And we'll work with our operations team and then even our customers' operations teams to understand machine limitations.
Right. Okay. And is there any shrinking going on here with this? So you've got to take that into account.
Shrinking, not too often. Yeah, it's you find that more in rigid packaging than you do with flexibles, but for the most part, no.
So this is more film wrap, right? Around, like, let's say, for example, a Gatorade bottle,
Mhm.
right? That's the film we're talking about.
Um,
That stuff.
we do a little bit of that. I would turn it more to pre-made pouches. So think of
Right.
a trail mix, right? Trail mix bag. That's kind of bread and butter there.
Okay, so you can go from regular, I know I'm not a plastic expert, but clear plastic to foil pack right through. And is that something you do?
Yeah, yeah, we've got solutions for just about everything. A lot of what we're doing is adhesive lamination and extrusion lamination to put the right film grades together to achieve barrier properties needed or functional performance from maybe a drop test for large kibble bags for pets. So we've got a broad range that we're doing there, even down to stick packs for right your hydration drinks or
Yeah.
what you add to water.
Yeah, so a lot of foil-based packaging there, right? Because film foil-based, I guess, and you probably have the right term for it, but I open up my dog's kibble bag, and it's all shiny on the inside, and it's got the nice whites and pictures of golden retrievers on the outside, because
That's
it
right.
seems all golden retrievers on the packaging.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we've got multiple solutions there that we'll put together based on the needs of the customer.
Okay. So how did you get into this? Where did you start? Tell us, what you did as you came out of school. I mean, was this like a deliberate path that you knew you were going to get into, or was it totally by accident? Just happened. So tell us about that.
A little bit of both. So I went to Pittsburgh State University down in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Always got to clarify because most people
Yeah,
think
just yeah.
Pennsylvania. So no H on Pittsburgh. But down there is Pitt State has one of the highest rated technology programs in the country. So it's my degree was plastics engineering technology. It really focused around injection molding, which is a
Right.
common resin processing type. I really got into the resin processing side is what the focus of that degree was on, and ended up going into rigid packaging, right? So blow molding, injection stretch, extrusion blow molding, and spent a lot of time in operations and in new product development. So again, working with a lot of CPGs, qualifying new products to market, and moved around the country a little bit. And my wife and I had started having kids and wanted to get back closer to home, which is in the Joplin, Missouri area. So we made a switch, came back to Kansas City and working for my current company, PPC. So a little
Right.
bit by accident, right? I think my dream job would have been to work in somewhere outdoor recreational type equipment, but those jobs are few and far between. So
Right. Okay. So I'm a bit more familiar with the blow molding, injection molding. It's
mhm,
the industry I've been involved with in parts of my career. So
sure.
very familiar with that type of process. Interesting that you ended up going from that, because that would be a typical plastic, the traditional plastic
Right.
style manufacturing role, right? And you ended up in film,
Mhm.
and not film as in like Hollywood, but
Yeah.
you know. Okay, so on Jim, what was one of your pivotal moments?
Ooh, I knew I always wanted to be in the kind of the R&D side. So I was glad for the opportunity to move forward with that in rigid, right? But actually coming to PPC was probably a is a very good change in my career at that time. And then an opportunity opened up to move into this manager role. I've always been drawn to leadership, right? I was captain of multiple sports teams through high school, was a leader of the offensive line in college at Pitt State. So I always knew I was kind of driven towards that. And I had a lot of poor experiences, I would say, through my athletics careers. And so I picked up a lot of what not to do. And I also picked up a lot of what this is what I would want. So that's how I'm going to try and lead a team. So that change has opened up a lot of opportunities, and so we've been able to input a lot of improvements into the ways that we work at PPC from the engineering side.
Right. And you're not just doing it at your company, you're actually paying it back through the PMMI, which is the packaging industry group, and that you're the chairman of the emerging leaders. But a previous year, you were one of the winners of the emerging leaders,
I
correct?
was, yeah. I was one of the winners of the On the Rise Awards through PMMI.
Right, which is just about coming up again right now. I just saw you post on LinkedIn that the nominations are flooding in, I hope, by
Yeah.
now. And you carried the torch. Actually, funny because we had Alex Varga on episode 3. That you picked up the torch from him because he was the previous chairman, right?
No, Alex was not. So he actually, I think he joined the committee the same time I did. No, our previous chairperson was Jackie Sessler.
So on that leadership note, I'm going to keep us on this a little bit because I'm really
Sure.
curious to get your perspective from your age. I'm one of the older people getting ready to retire, and I'm not a boomer, but I'm a Gen X. How do you see the weight of all of that tribal knowledge, all of the industry experience that is leaving the industry being put on your shoulders as the future leaders in the industry? How do you see yourself and your peers, handling that pressure? What kind of ideas do you think you have to be able to control the flow of that information and make it useful, and maybe even change some of the things that we think are not holding us back, but are holding us back, right?
Sure.
And that's something that is generational. And we're doing it the best way, but not necessarily. Let's hear his thoughts on some of the leadership principles and leadership skills you're going to need going into the future.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm an old soul at heart. So I share some of the same values that some of the generations that came before me share. But from a leadership perspective, yeah, it's certainly a heavy burden to bear because there is a tremendous amount of knowledge with all these folks that will be retiring here soon. I mean, we're seeing it at PPC already, starting to come to fruition. I've got a pretty young team overall, right? So we don't have a whole lot of tenure or experience in the industry. And honestly, it's we've got to be pretty dynamic. But generally speaking, I think teams need to be pretty agile and pretty able to move quickly. And that's going to rely on multitude of resources, right? So we rely on not only our internal knowledge and experiences, but our suppliers and our customers' experiences as well, and
Right.
then the OEMs that we utilize too. Right. So it's a lot of investigating, a lot of trying to drive through the tribal knowledge that's been gained, and just trying to come up with creative solutions. So we utilize existing processes and historical ways of doing things, but we're also looking for improvements. We've got a pretty lean team. We're asked to do a lot. So we're always looking for better ways to do something that can allow us to be more nimble in the ways we work. Fortunately, technology is also improving as we go. So we utilize technologies, and there's a lot of good programs out there that can capture tribal knowledge into specifications and can be shared across ERP systems. There's all kinds of acronyms out there of tools to be used, but we're heavily utilizing those as well.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, AI obviously is one of those
Mhm.
tools. Recent conversation that I've had with some of the leaders in the industry was more about how can we collect that information that we don't know they have in their heads, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of habits that are not documented. There's a lot of eyeballing that someone can look at something and identify a fault with it or a flaw, or maybe the process is off a little bit just by looking at it. And those are the parts that are not documented.
Mhm.
Okay. And take sometimes to learn, usually through an apprenticeship or working on the machine for a certain amount of time. They get to have a feel, we get connected to the machine, you get what I mean?
Right.
And one of the ideas that was floating around was that you have basically a recording session once a month. You give some of your senior people, and I shouldn't call them senior because that's making me sound like I'm old, but your experienced people
Mhm.
into a room, I don't know, with some beer and pizza or,
Yeah.
whatever. And they get them just to talk about So, when you're every day, what kind of things do you face every day that you don't document, or you just do naturally? Talk us through the way that you start up the machine, or the way you adjust the tension on that roller, or, those type of things, and that you go through just like a conversation and actually capture it while it's being said in a non, threatening environment, just a relaxed environment where people are just laughing and joking and just that kind of place.
Yeah.
Yeah, capture that. And then once you've actually captured it, then you've got it there forever. You can use it as a database to, in the future, you might not even know you're going to face that problem, but then you could just start a little chat on it and just go, hey, we talked to Joe, 5 years ago, when just before he retired, he mentioned about tensioning that roller, and it was a little tip on there that, is not in the manual.
Hmm.
Recall that. It would just bring it all back.
Oh yeah.
Right? I think that was a pretty smart idea and something that should be built on a concept. Jim Beretta, if you're listening, sorry, maybe I shouldn't have brought it up, but it's Jim's baby is this tribal knowledge thing and transferring it. He's actually a good friend of mine, so we're going to be talking about that when he comes on the show.
There you go.
That took us a little bit down a rabbit hole there on the leadership thing. How long have you been involved with the PMMI?
Yeah. So PPC has been involved for quite a few years now. Honestly, I didn't know much about PMMI outside of the fact that they put on Pack Expo until I was surprised with the fact that I won the On the Rise award. So I didn't know I was committed. It was
You
kind
didn't
of,
know you were being interested. Did you know you
no,
were being? No, really?
no,
Oh my God.
no. Yeah, one of our sales leaders recognized me, and then they surprised it. We have tier meetings every Wednesday, and I was surprised with that just on a random Wednesday. So it's only been a couple years now that I've really been aware of all the services that PMMI offers.
Yeah, it's an amazing group from every aspect. I've been involved in for about a year and a half now.
Yeah,
I have to say, I mean, I've been in the industry a long time. It's certainly the best industry group I've been involved with. The people that are there feels like a family,
it really does.
and
Yeah. Everybody's
literally,
super friendly, easy to get along with. They put on great
yeah,
events as well.
they do. They put a lot of effort into those. I haven't been to a bad PMMI event yet,
Hmm.
you know,
Agreed.
and Pack Expo is one of the biggest ones, and I'm guessing you'll be in Vegas in September this year.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Okay. Yeah. Well, don't make any arrangements. I'm going to warn you right now. Don't make any arrangements for the Tuesday night.
Okay.
Okay. You can invite your other guests to our customer night. We've got a special night planned at Pack
Sure.
Expo this
Yeah, I'll keep
year.
it open.
Yeah. So anyone listening out there and hear us talking about PMMI, I think I talk about PMMI like every episode, but there is a meaning behind that. It is a wonderful group. If you're in the packaging industry in any shape or form, I highly recommend checking it out and becoming a member. Lots of benefits to being a member, and it's really inexpensive to be a member of PMMI. And if you really want to get really involved, jump on. Once you've got your kind of feet wet with PMMI, look to get yourself onto a committee group here. We do some really good stuff with the committees, and it really is payback into the packaging and automation industry, not just packaging, but the whole industry. So big shout out for PMMI there.
Yeah.
So going back to your story here, so you've got out of school, you got into a working position, you worked your way up through the company a little bit. Now you're at the operations management level, right? And I have to ask you this: what has been the biggest challenge for you so far on a personal level of getting to where you are today?
Yeah. Overcoming that.
Besides,
Go ahead.
besides keeping your mustache perfect, and I haven't mentioned the mustache yet. So anyone listening, because I know a lot of you will be listening or not watching this, Jacob has the most amazing handlebar mustache, and he stands out from a crowd instantly. You can recognize that's Jacob over there. But it's not just a mustache, it's a work of art, and he actually looks after it every day. So I'm looking at his mustache right now, and it must be a challenge for him to keep it looking like that all the way. But I'll get his feedback on that in a minute. Let's go back to the original question. What was that biggest challenge you've had so far?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that was probably overcoming the move from what we'll call an individual contributor to manager, right? So working with my peers to managing them. that was certainly the biggest challenge. And right, I think I've gotten a lot better at it, but delegating, right? Used to working at a very high level as an individual contributor, but really that challenge of trusting the my employees to do what they need to, that was probably the biggest hurdle to overcome. Like I said, I think I've gotten a lot better. But yeah, without a doubt, that was the biggest challenge.
It's really hard, and you're absolutely right. I've experienced that myself, where you're best buddies with the people you're working with. You're socializing with them, you're working together, and then suddenly you're different. Okay,
Mhm.
and it's not you're not different, but you're looked at differently,
Yeah.
and, and you could still be the same person and still treat those peers the same. Okay, now you've got a lower amount of responsibility, but I think most of us do try to be the same person with those peers that we work with, but there seems to be a blockage from the other direction.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And if you're related to that, it's like, well, you can't tell me what to do, and it shouldn't get to that point where you're telling anyone to do anything. It should be more of a mutual ask and working together. But that's not something you can solve as a manager. That's something that person has to solve, right? It's not you.
Yeah,
So I can totally relate to that challenge.
sure.
So moving from that personal challenge, working at your company, what's the most challenging packaging conundrum you have?
Yeah, moving to, I would say, recyclable packaging in the flexible packaging space. That has certainly been a challenge, and I think it's industry wide, right? The industry spent 50 years or however long trying to optimize our normal conventional packaging structures, and now we're still early on in that sustainable transition. So you've got PCR options or PIR that can be added into existing film grades, but the biggest challenge is overcoming the hurdle to true recyclable solutions. Now you've got some out there with paper, right? Those are a little easier to get into a curbside recycling, and you've got store drop-off recycling for true polyethylene packaging. So yeah, I mean there's some solutions which are simpler than others, but yeah, that's been a major hurdle for everybody in the industry to overcome.
What's the most unusual material that you've had to work with based on that sustainability? Alex Fargo was telling me he had to work with bamboo on one of his
Interesting.
projects.
I
Right.
haven't come across bamboo up to this point. I'd say the most challenging to move and transition to that recyclable structure is probably a foil-based structure currently, right? It's a very common structure out there, but the barrier properties you can achieve from that are difficult to replicate in an all PE format.
Right. Okay. And back to the film. I didn't finish on
Sure.
that. How wide are you running with that film? Is it a 1 meter width? Is it 3 meter, 5 meter? How wide can you go? I'm just trying to imagine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to standard units, but yeah, I know I'm dumb American, right? So we've got 60-inch presses, so 5 feet, so right, meter and a half or so, a little less. But that's the max width that we're typically running internally.
Right. Okay. So that would be maybe cut in half. Would you make something that was nearly 5 feet long as a
Yeah,
package?
some of our applications actually could exceed that if we really wanted to extend our capabilities from a pouch converting perspective.
Yeah.
There's some big pouches out there, especially in the dog food space, right? Those are you get up to the
Yeah.
50-pound packages, you're starting to really extend the capabilities of your equipment.
And I guess that would be just the width. I mean, the length is not unlimited, but it basically,
Yep.
the whole length of
Yeah,
that.
you're
So,
limited to about 40 inches that way.
yeah. Okay. Very cool. All right. Um, One of the things that we were just talking about there is sustainability. What do you think about where the future's heading with that? How difficult it's going to be to get everyone on the same page, especially when governments, presidents change and they have different ideologies about, the green world and what we're leaving for generations in the future.
Sure.
That's the whole point of sustainability, right? Is to make a cleaner world, and we're not putting so much crap into the ground.
Yeah.
And you're one of the younger generations with kids that, you would like to have a cleaner world and a better world without all those chemicals and toxins in the air, right?
Yeah.
So what's your take on this whole sustainability thing?
So sustainability, it's a very broad reaching term. It encompasses a lot of different things, and be willing to bet you ask 10 people, each one of them is going to give you a different answer of what sustainability means. So
Yeah.
right, there's a lot of avenues you can go. The big push right now is to be in recyclable packaging, at least in the flexible world. So you've got the EPR, extended producer responsibility, that's going on, where CPGs are actually being essentially fined by states for packaging that's going in there. And it varies based on how, we'll call it, how sustainable that product is. So there's only what, 7 states as of today, I think, that have passed legislature, and we'll continue to see that grow. But each of them have different regulations, have different fine structures. So yeah, I would imagine at some point we'll start to see an overall encompassing. I think the federal government's going to have to step in and say, okay, this is going to be the same for each state across the board. When that happens, I don't know.
Probably won't be under this government, maybe after this one. But getting back to the baby boomers and the Gen Xers retiring, although they are those politicians that are rejecting a lot of this are also
Right?
starting to retire. Right. So that's
Exactly.
the silver lining you've got there. You've got younger generations coming through that have grown up with the educated view of protecting the world, right? And
Yeah.
and I definitely see a massive difference even for that generation now. I'm guessing in your age you're close to millennial.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm somewhere in
Yeah, you're one of the first millennials.
to, I think I'm towards the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, the younger end. So
Yeah.
same age as my daughter is also tail end of the millennials,
Sure.
and definitely a difference in people's thought patterns from ages. Okay. And so one of the things I talk a lot about at the moment is downtime and preventable downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening is that we're building machines and equipment based on having the older people around, the
Yeah.
boomers and Xers that have always worked and have had the skills passed on to them through proper apprenticeships and learned through other people. And we don't necessarily have the time or the systems in place now that Sharp has been dropped in a lot of schools to teach the younger generations all the skills they need to be able to keep machines going. And one of my pet projects is trying to get machine builders to recognize that 5, 10 years down the road, when their machines should still be running in a lot of cases, that the generation that's going to be maintaining and servicing those machines are not going to have the same skill sets as the ones that are bad today.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And how are you handling that at your company?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge. What we find is a lot of our customers, right? We're dealing with the CPGs that are kind of cutting edge, right? So they're always coming out and wanting to provide new solutions, new products. So we see a pretty quick turn on on what we're able to provide. The equipment we're running, right? You'll have new equipment and it'll improve. Kind of going back to your point earlier though, we're documenting a lot of our training through video. So that's been a huge assistance. Scheduling regular on site training sessions with our OEMs for the equipment. But yeah, so as we go, we'll continue to document through video and other tools on how to actually operate these machines.
Have you looked into virtual reality, kind of augmented reality training systems yet?
A little bit. We haven't quite made the jump there, right? I think it's seems to be still early on, we'll just have to work with our OEMs a little bit more to see what they offer.
Yeah, did you do the tour at the last PMMI annual meeting in Hershey?
Mm-hmm.
JLS
Yeah,
tour there. Impressive facility there for anyone listening to
very
JLS.
impressive.
JLS be using virtual reality for training their technicians to understand the machines and actually give them to their customers as well, so that they can actually talk them through, see what they're seeing, and actually embrace that. I think they're one of the pioneers in doing this kind of stuff. That's what made me think of
Yeah.
maybe you would be there for some of your training on the machines.
No, I think it's a great idea. We're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I'll have to get JLS on here. That would be
Yeah.
an idea to have on here. All right, so I'm gonna kind of shift topic a little bit. I know you've got boys, right? And you're into camping.
I am. Yes, that's right.
Tell us a little bit about what you do on your personal side of things and what you're comfortable telling us and what you
Yeah.
enjoy doing when you're not working.
Yeah. So anything outdoors. My favorite hobby is fly fishing. I don't get to do it as often as I'd like. We're based out of Missouri, and there's a few trout rivers that are stocked through the state, but right, going out to Colorado and other states and getting on the rivers, that's kind of my favorite thing to do. But yeah, anything outdoors. We're a big outdoor family. If I'm not in the office and weather's decent, we'll be outside doing something. So camping is certainly one that we try to do. And my wife and I have 4 kids. We went camping probably every other weekend, it seemed like.
Wow.
And yeah, and we tent camp. So we don't get real fancy with campers or anything.
I was just having a visual there, and I got to share this visual. So you've got that fly fishing, that typical fly fishing with the tweed jacket, got the waders on, got the billy hat, okay, and the mustache, and the putting the line out. I just imagine you wading in a river, looking the real piece, real work with the mustache, and put that hat on, and maybe even like a pipe coming from your mouth, like the old lads, they used to have a little pipe of fishing, right? Sorry, I just had that
Yeah.
visual there. But tent camping, and you've got boys and girls on and your kids.
Yeah, I've kept 3 kids. It goes boy, girl, boy. It's a
Yeah,
girl sandwich in the middle. Yeah, we started camping with them. We wanted to make sure it was something we taught them. We knew it would be a very big challenge, but since having kids, we've gone at least twice a year. So once in the spring, once in the fall. This year we'll actually have a few trips planned. So we took our first trip a couple weekends ago. Went down
right.
to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and then we're heading out to Colorado for I think a 5-day camping trip here soon. So it'll be
That would
fun.
be an adventure.
Yeah. We'll see how the kids
Yeah,
do.
yeah, they're gonna love that, and I bet they do love it because I remember at that age, just being outside doing
Mhm.
stuff that you don't normally do, and you know what, you're getting them away from the iPads and the technology. You get them out into the wild. So I think you're doing great things with kids in camping like that,
Yeah.
especially. I mean, we're not glamping here. You're actually camping.
No, no, we're roughing it, as most people
Good
would
for
say.
you. We actually upgraded to a RV trailer, and we did our maiden voyage last weekend.
And I
And I was thinking of anyone that was camping because last weekend was our official first long weekend of the year.
yeah,
We call it mid before everyone kind of goes away for that weekend. It's the first camping trip. Jacob, we pulled up to the campsite, set up our trailer on Friday afternoon, late afternoon, evening. I took the day off on Friday, and it was 26 degrees. So you're in this, 70, you're getting into the 80-degree Fahrenheit mark there. Really warm. Mosquitoes were coming in. So, hey, new people, we're going to have fun here. We set it up. We got a mosquito. They turn it down, everything else. And then it basically started raining,
oh
right?
man.
We spent an hour and a half in one of the wildest thunderstorms I can
Wow.
ever remember. And we were in a trailer and it was pounding down the river trailer. There's no way you were going to go to sleep. It was so noisy. But the thunder and the lightning, we stayed in that zone for an hour and a half. I've never been in long, thunderstorm. Usually they pass through and they're gone, but unless they're half an hour at the most.
Yeah.
This one just carried on. And you know what happened the next day? So Saturday, the temperature dropped to 4 degrees
Holy cow.
centigrade. So I'm bad at conversions when it gets to single digits, but that's got to be something like 30, 36, 40
Yeah,
degrees.
if you're close to 40, right? Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And it rained all day. Absolutely didn't stop raining all day and all night. And you know what that's like in a tent.
Oh, yeah.
It's misery, right?
Yeah.
Everything gets wet. Nothing is dry. You can't cook anything properly. I just hope you don't have any of those experiences. But that was our first time of not camping in a tent and actually going in a trailer. And I tell you, it was heaven.
Yeah, it's a good
We
thing you had it.
inside, we put the heater on, we stayed dry, we watched TV. My wife and I are British, so we end up watching Coronation Street.
Mhm.
We've been traveling a lot, and we always have episodes to catch up on. So I think we got through like 8 episodes on Saturday, one after another. But yeah, we stayed dry. It was fun. But I'm hoping you don't get one of those kind of situations you're camping, because
Yeah, it'd be a challenge with
changes it.
that might be hotel situation, for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, exactly. You're packing everything up and just going to a hotel, right?
Right.
Okay. Um, Moving along, we're kind of coming closer to the end of the podcast here. This has been awesome, by the way. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for giving me time and coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, there's some questions I ask every guest that come on here,
Sure.
and one of those is, and you're not so old, but you still were younger, when you at one point. So, what is one piece of career advice, or even leadership advice, or even personal development advice? I guess you could put it that way, that you would give your youngest self if you look back and go, "God, I wish I knew how to deal with that situation, or I wish I knew that when I was younger." What would that be? And I'm asking you so that you can share that with maybe someone who's out there and they're going through a similar experience. They can learn from you.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of advice I could give myself, but the one that stands out the most is to be open to opportunities, right? Don't close yourself off because you've got your mindset on a very specific path, right? Keep an open mind because if you do that, things will open up in ways that you probably can't imagine.
Right. So if someone comes to you with an idea, don't just shut them down straight away. Keep an open mind
Yeah,
and
exactly.
explore it a little bit. Maybe take it in a little bit, and before you say no, think about it for a little while
Yeah.
and read a little different angles, and then come back with an answer.
Yep. Exactly.
And I think you're right. And a lot of us actually say no too soon for a lot of things.
Right.
And don't give it a chance. And then later on, I can definitely vouch for this. Look back and you go, well, maybe I should have tried that. I think I would have enjoyed it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Your way may not be the best way. So,
Yeah. But there's also some solace on the other side of the coin where you've got some security there. And I've
Mhm.
made the mistake the other way, Jacob, where I left a company I loved and had no problems there, and what looked like a better opportunity somewhere else. And I got to the other place and I absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
Didn't stay there very long. But yeah, it only happened once.
Yeah.
I'm still here and plan to stay here until the end of my career.
Very good.
So yeah, keep an open mind is one of the pieces of advice that you wish you had a bit more of when you were younger, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Don't discount something just because it's not what you had imagined. Right.
Good advice. Yeah, absolutely. Now, another question I ask everyone is one of their favorite tools, software, and it could be an app, it could be anything that they use in their daily life that they think they couldn't live without.
Mhm. So this is one that I think gets lost a lot, but a phone to actually pick up and call somebody, right? We've got Teams, you've got Outlook or email. There's all kinds of ways to get a hold of people, but just picking up the phone and calling somebody tends to do a lot more than most people realize. So yeah, it's
I'm actually hearing this from a younger person.
yeah,
This is
exactly.
amazing. This is awesome.
I told you I was an
And
old soul.
it's so funny. I've got 3 daughters, okay, and not all of them all the time, but most of them most of the time. I can call them. Actually, my eldest daughter, Sam, she usually answers the phone. She's the
Mhm.
older generation, she's more comfortable with the phone. But the 2 younger ones, they're both Gen Z, okay? I'll try calling, they won't answer the phone, okay? But if I send them a text, they answer them right away.
Yeah.
So I know they've got their phone in their hand, and I know they don't go anywhere without their phone. So they know that, dad called,
Yep.
right? But you're right. It is a lost art. The telephone conversation makes things so much easier.
Mhm.
You can get something arranged in literally less than a minute
Yeah.
that will take 10, 15 minutes via text,
Right. Yeah,
or
exactly.
email, even longer with email, right?
Yep.
So just pick up the phone. Yeah, that's another piece of good advice that you're offering there. If you want to take care of something really quickly, pick up the phone and call the other person and talk to them like you would if they were in the same room, because that's
Exactly.
you wouldn't text someone. Actually, kids do. I mean, they text, their sisters when brothers when they're in the same house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or even the same room, except they're talking about dad, or when they're
Mhm.
doing that. How old are your kids again?
So we've got and the oldest is almost 7. Our daughter just turned 4, and then the youngest is about a year and a little over a year and a half old.
So you don't have that problem yet with
Not yet. Not
the
yet.
phone. Keep that phone away from them as long as you can. Okay,
That's the plan.
it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. All right. So the phone, but not for a phone as in using it for apps, but a phone
Yeah,
for the use it was designed for, is to call people with, right?
ultimately. Yep.
I love that. It's a really simple answer and makes total sense. Great answer. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, thanks.
So I think you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I gotta ask you another question based on it. If you didn't get into the packaging industry, what do you think you would have done, or what would you think you would like to have done if you weren't in this industry, if you had to start over again?
Oh, that's a I've imagined on a couple occasions what my life could have been like, right? I got married basically as soon as I graduated from college. So, right, decisions were made for my career as well as my wife's at the time, right? So we wanted to make sure we stayed close to home. But yeah, if I wouldn't have gone into packaging, who knows? I mean, I probably would have ended up somewhere in the mountains or doing something else, right? There are a couple ways that it could have gone, but staying somewhere related to outdoor activities or something like that, right? Being a fly fishing guide would have been a great fun. I don't think I would have stayed married for very long if that was the route. But
Not unless they were doing it with you,
yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah. Actually, talking about the outdoors, I don't know if you watch the on YouTube, the uh, outdoor guy from Alaska, something boys. He's
Okay.
just stepped down and he does all the outdoor adventures. I can't remember.
Man.
I'll put it in show notes when I remember the name, but it's something boys. And I watched his last episode. So too many people contacting me now, but he just lives the outdoors. It might be that his wife has told him to
Yeah,
pull it in now, you know. But yeah, I could see how you'd be the outdoors person. Okay, so to wrap up a little bit here, and the last kind of question I'm going to ask you, unless you've got any questions you want to throw back at me, is who would be one person you would highly recommend to get on to Machine Builder Talk podcast?
yeah. So there's quite a few out there, but my old one of my previous managers, his name's Brad Humboldt. He works for W&H actually. So he'd be a good one to get on, I think. He's got a lot of insights from across various industries. So I think he'd be a good one to get on.
Okay. Well, I'll be leaning on you to give me a referral. It's always best for you.
Sure.
Yeah, I recommended you for a podcast, so you can't say no. That's what you have to say.
That's right.
And you can take all of the swearing he's going to give you. And I don't want to be on a podcast, but hopefully
That's
it
fine.
does.
That's fine.
I will follow up with you on that one. And so the last part of the show here is how do people get hold of you? Where do they find Jacob Wall?
Yeah, the easiest place is LinkedIn, right? I'm not super active on LinkedIn, but usually if I get a message, I'll answer it pretty quick. So that'd be the easiest place. And then my email and phone number, I think, are listed in there as well.
Okay. And I'll put that in the show notes. So Jacob's website for PPC and his LinkedIn profile will be in the show notes there. And any of the other things we mentioned, we'll make sure they get included. So Jacob, that was awesome. Thank you ever so much for coming on, especially on a late Friday when you're heading into a long weekend. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you giving me the time after hours to do this. Wish you an amazing weekend coming up in Memorial Day.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, happy to be on and glad you asked me to. Been enjoyable.
Okay.
And that's a wrap for today's show, so thanks for tuning in to Machine Builder Talk. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to click subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you really like listening, a quick review goes a long way to help more machine builders and automation pros like you find the show. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep building.